Hello, welcome to Benevolent Business. I'm your host, Hayden Bloomfield. This week we've got Matt Green, the rapping science teacher.
Whatever was in the media, Love Island, Drake, memes, and it popped off. So I went from sort of 100 followers of 6 months of trying to thousands, and followers went from, on TikTok, 100 to 20,000 in 2 days. Do as best as you can, so you've got that option.
They don't have to go to school, they get to go to school.
Yeah,
and that's something Andy Abdal
yeah.
talks about. He always says about if you can change your mindset of, instead of saying I have to do this, and he applied it when he was a doctor, I have to go and see this patient quickly. I get to go and see this patient, I get to help them, I get to be part of improving their lives. And that helped him change his mind so much. And I think, if people adopted that, it would help a lot.
Some deep questions today.
I don't do easy conversation.
I like it. Why was I not taught what a mortgage was before I got a house? Why was I turned down credit on things like phones when I'd never had a default payment? And why was I not able to do certain things? And it's like I had to get a degree in what credit was.
While we're studying history, we should be studying future. What does the future look like?
I definitely think it can be possible. I've got some wild ideas on how education can change. Classroom teachers, forgive me, because this will put you out of a job if this does happen.
Science teacher. I literally came across Matt, I think it was like on Instagram or something, just a random reel popped up of this rapping science teacher, which I just thought was incredibly entertaining, and just wondered if only that was around when I was at school, I probably would have remembered all this, remembered so much more information on science based on the fact of it's in a rap. So I reached out to Matt to see if he wanted to come on. He was keen. Hi. Matt, thank you for coming to Benevolent Business. Thanks you for giving me your time.
Thanks for taking the time to come down here.
JGM Science Tutors. First off, do you just want to do a quick little 30-second intro of what is JGM Science Tutors?
Yeah, of course. So JGM Science Tutors, we're a science specialist tutoring agency, and we work by providing one-to-one support to students in the form of fully qualified science teachers. And it came out pretty much of a need of parents trying to find science teachers for their kids, and it just being very difficult for them. I've worked in education, so I've got connections. I can find science teachers quite easily. I hire and I supply. And it used to just be science, but now it's every subject.
So the thing that drew me into yourself was just I was scrolling through Instagram and just came across your raps that you do. Where was the inspiration for that? How did you end up becoming like a rapping science teacher?
So the inspiration for that was, I think maybe this time, maybe 3 years ago. I was very slow to the social media game. Had a website, customers were coming in, but I thought I've got to get on Instagram. Did it, very, very boring. Just basic posts on tutoring and stuff that might be of interest, one like, one view, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then I learned, who's your audience, try to make it a bit more interesting. I started targeting the kids with posts about how to learn things, getting whatever was in the media, Love Island, Drake, memes, and it popped off. So I went from sort of 100 followers of 6 months of trying to, I think maybe thousands, but it wasn't really getting parents in. So I thought I've got to try something new here. And in my early years of uni, I fancied myself as a little bit of a rapper, which I packed in years ago. But I thought, let me see if I can get a song, get some lyrics, put the science in it. And I did it, and kids seemed to like it. It didn't get as many views as I would like, but I did another one, and then I went on TikTok at some point, and after about 6 months, 50, 60,000 views, did it again, 100,000 views, did it again, I think 500,000, and followers went from, on TikTok, something like 100 to 20,000 in 2 days. So I thought, I'm onto something here, and that was about a year and 3 months ago. I thought, let's keep doing it.
Okay, I want to break into that a little bit. So you said it was a case of experimenting. This wasn't instant. It's a case of you had a few different ideas, see what was working, trying to understand. Key thing I took out from what you said there was understanding your audience and okay, I've drawn in the kids now, but I need to draw the parents in as well, because the parents ultimately are going to be paying for tutors.
That's it.
So you need to find a way that the kids are going, this guy's cool, I want to be tutored by him, but also you need the parents to be like, he's respectable, I will pay my money.
That's it. And everything's a learning curve. So when it eventually started popping off and went in the tens of thousands of followers, they were all students, and it wasn't drawing in the parents. But I realised actually I've got a separate business here, I've got a separate entity. So the whole rapping thing I do separate from the company now. The company's got its own marketing machine, and that pulls in customers. But that's for parents, and that's for fee-paying parents that want tutoring for their kids. The rapping science will always be free, and that will always be for students that, they're at home, they want to learn a topic, they think, how do I learn about respiration? You can type in rapping respiration or Matt Green respiration, and it comes up. And hopefully that's a way of of understanding and where's a little bit more fun.
No, I think it's a genius idea, and like I think I said to you when I reached out to you, like I wish it was around when I was at school, because it would have made key facts and statistics and all kinds of knowledge you need to try and retain. If you can just have a song that you just jingle along in your head, like the things that I retained from school. I did French for years, don't speak any French, but I know how to ask someone when their birthday is because of the song of like.
Oh right, okay.
Because it was like, "Quel est le date de ton anniversaire?" Like, yeah, I just remember doing this song in French, and so it's like one of the only things I can remember because it was a song. But going back to you, like building this social presence. So on TikTok, you said about you'd made a few videos, started doing the raps, and it wasn't really taking off. And did you say was it instant on TikTok, or you said it was still a few months?
It took a while. So Instagram was the first thing I went on trying to get moving. And again, I think maybe it's 3 or 4 years ago, breaking my back to get 100 followers, and I realised if I do interesting posts on how to learn things, and I woke up one morning, it was on 300, and the next 800. I was like, okay, I've got an idea here. And then maybe like a year later, I thought, let me try the rapping thing. Put it on TikTok and Instagram at the same time. I think I truly believed at the time it would get 1 million views on TikTok, because TikTok was just the new kid on the block.
Yeah.
And it was all about music and expressing yourself. And I thought, yeah, this is genius. It's going to work. And I've always got an attitude of just blindly believe it's going to work 100%. Don't worry about the disappointment later. I was like, no, this will definitely do it. I woke up next day, I think 1,000 views. And some people said, oh, that's good. But I was like, no, it's got to be 1 million. I was like, I'll try again. I put more time, more effort. And the next one got 500 views. And then I think after 6 months of refusing to throw the towel in, and I started to like TikTok at this point. I wasn't really consuming it, I was just making. And I was like, oh, that's funny. And I found myself scrolling past certain things. And I was like, oh, I'm scrolling past it because it's an advert. And then just suddenly a light bulb went in my head. I thought, are kids scrolling past my stuff because I've got the JGM branding, it's white, it looks like an advert? And I thought, maybe it's because it looks like an advert. And I also kind of thought you had to have the whole vertical video. I thought you can't have a YouTube format in the middle. But then I started noticing people were doing that. So I thought, let me get rid of the branding. Let me put a black background. And let me just put the vertical 16:9 video in the middle. Did that, 400 views. Next day, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. Stick with the strategy. And that was the thing that worked.
Oh, okay, that's interesting, because I've found with Reels and such on TikTok or Insta is that if it's 16:9, it never does as well, whereas if it's the full screen and it's portrait mode, it does a lot better. But it's interesting you found you still get great results even with the 16:9.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, because I've heard the same thing.
Yeah.
That's why I started doing the vertical format. I don't know what it is, because I still make vertical videos.
Yeah.
But my bread and butter, the raps are always 16:9 with a massive black up and like huge amounts of space not being used, and they're the ones that can tend to get 1 million views, 4 million views. The vertical ones I do never get more than 100,000. And I think I've tried rapping once or twice. They might do okay, but they never do as well.
Interesting. What I want to gauge from you and understand, I think this will be one of the most valuable things if anyone's listening that's trying to build a social presence, is that, as you said, this was months and months and months of like not really seeing any results, and it was only after many videos, many attempts, many months of trying that you then started seeing some traction.
Yeah.
So what is it that enabled you to keep trying, that you wasn't deterred? What is it that you'd made 10 videos and you're like, I'm going to make an 11th, it's going to make it, didn't work. Okay, I'm going to make a 12th one and it's going to make it, didn't work. What is it that enabled you to keep saying, I'm going to try again, I'm going to try again?
That's a good question. I think the actual idea of what it was, I just thought it was good. I just thought it was, I couldn't see it not working. And that's not to say, it was a mindless idea. I was doing social media for a while before that. I put out posts. I always try to do things scientifically. I don't just think, I think it's good, so other people must. I look at the results. If it sort of bombs, obviously people don't like it. There's no point being overly emotional about it. It's just not simply good enough. Do a variety of something here, something there, something different, and then see what ones sort of resonate with people. When I put the rap on Instagram to begin with, I think it was the comments. So people would say, I really like this. The views weren't crazy, but people that weren't my friends and weren't necessarily going to lie to me to make me feel better were saying, this is really good. I think loads of kids were saying, why isn't this not getting more views? And I think the last thing that made me think this has got legs was there was a certain expectation of annihilation. I sort of expect to put yourself out there and a few people to go, who's this idiot? what's this? Maybe I expected 50-50 positive and 50% negative, but it was nowhere near like it was like 90% positive, 10% negative. And I thought, that's strange. You'd think there'd be kids saying, "Oh, who's this idiot? Who's this teacher? Does this teacher think he's cool?" But it didn't really happen. And I thought that just must mean it's good enough. It's just I'm not working the algorithm right. But I think really deep down it's just sheer belief that it could pop off. And I think if probably I'd got to this point now, 2.5 years in, and I'm still getting thousands of views or low hundreds, I might have had to put the towel in and say I've got to change something. But you know, all the social media research I do, it always comes down to the same thing. You've got to keep consistent, monitor, and then if it's not working, change something. And it can be as simple as one little element. If it can work, it can work. But you just got to do every variation of it. And I think once you've got to a point where you think I've done every variation I can possibly do, and I'm still getting 12 views, that's when you've got to maybe come up with a new idea.
So then, if someone is listening, and as you said, if you was 2.5 years in and you still wasn't gaining traction, you would have thrown the towel in. If someone's listening and they're 2.5, 3 years into an idea, trying to create the content, tweaking it, would your suggestion to them maybe throw the towel in, or are you thinking still analyse? And
when I say throw the towel in, I don't mean on the dream. I don't mean on the actual thing. I mean the specific style that you're doing. So, you know, I'm wearing a white shirt. I'm rapping about science. The videos are a minute long. There's a whole bunch of factors I kept the same.
Yeah.
I'd throw the towel in maybe wearing the suit, change what I'm wearing, change the type of beats. Maybe grime isn't working, go to hip hop. So the thing for me was grime, got to be dressed like a teacher, got to be white background. And that was not, I was not rotating on that. I might have been changing a few elements here and there, the hashtags, but really that was the idea. I believed that it would work. I thought kids have to see this. They have to see, oh, that's a teacher. Hey, what's he doing? That was the idea, and I thought that it's going to work. If after 2.5 years it wasn't, then I would just have to throw the towel in on that particular idea and just sort of rebuild it. But in terms of throwing the towel in on everything, it's this train's moving. It's not going to stop.
I like that. No, because you hear a lot of stories on social media of just like someone uploads something, instantly blows up, instant traction. But then there are stories of the opposite. Because I like trying to build a YouTube channel and making videos after videos. I was trying to research and find videos that hadn't got success, just to see, there are people out there that have been making videos for years and haven't gained traction. And you start to find them. And I've even heard like stories of one in particular that I've heard on. Have you heard of the Private Parts podcast?
No, sounds interesting.
It's Jamie from Made in Chelsea, who has Candy Kittens, him and another chap, I can't remember his name. But anyway, he mentioned it, of this chap that it was a YouTuber, and he made a video about Fortnite every single day for years, for 3 years, and he had no subscribers, was getting like 10 views if that.
Okay.
But after 3 years, every single day, so that's over 1,000 videos, blew up.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 years. So it's like the more I've tried to research into social media, seems to be long-term consistency. If you do something for long enough, and as you said, tweak it, analyze it, look at what's not working, bounce around with the different ideas. And I think something I've taken from you there that's hugely valuable is try and start with elements that are consistent all the way through, so you can see what was different. As you said, white shirt, this genre of music, this is the setting, this is the background, this is the format, this is the angle I work with. So then every video is the same, it's just like you're rapping about something different. So then you can start to see, well, that one element was different in the video, therefore that's what worked. And then you try that again and say, oh, okay, it was the fact that my top button was undone, it just seemed to resonate with people a lot more, that kind of thing. So I really like that, that's really good. So I want to get into what the inspiration for you was, in terms of, like you said, you come from being a teacher and this is what you sort of journeyed into. So why did you become a teacher?
So first of all, I've loved science since I was possibly maybe 6-7 years old.
Okay.
Always loved science. The questions for me was always like, why is something like how it is? Let's just say, how's the body work? Got a brain and a heart. What are they made of? Cells. What are cells made of? Atoms. What are atoms made of? So I always wanted to dive deeper and find out more. So sort of doing a degree in it made sense. I think I went into sales for a little while after uni. Couldn't stand that. And I did a master's after uni before I got into the sales job. And then I thought, well, what do I like? I like talking about science. I like working with people. I like talking. And teaching just was the natural thing. and I enjoyed it ever since. You know, I consider myself quite lucky in teaching because I liked it from the day I started. Even the day I left, I wasn't sort of weather beaten and tired of it. I had other things, and if I could, I'd still be in the classroom now. But you know, with the business, the social media, family free, it's not practical. Maybe I'll get back to it sometime, but at the moment, not now.
So you said like from a young age you've loved science, and obviously you were back at school being a teacher. So what was school like for you? Did you enjoy school?
School, I loved primary school. Secondary school, I think everyone sort of hates secondary school. Secondary school was okay. I mean, I got on fine. I still got my friends from secondary school. Sixth form, I loved that. I changed sixth form, and I've got my lifelong friends from sixth form now. I would say overall I had a good time at school. I've had better times since, but yeah, for me there were subjects I loved: science, English. Subjects I didn't like: history, geography, that sort of thing. I haven't changed since, unfortunately.
It's as you said, like a lot of people don't like school. Or some people, like my relationship, secondary school, I wasn't a huge fan of. It wasn't that much like elements of bullying and such, and elements of just kids being kids and discovering and bodies changing and hormones and all sorts. So it just creates all kinds of different atmospheres. But I think like trying to understand, like going back as a teacher and understanding that motivation, because like I got out of school and I was like, right, shut the door behind me, I'm gone.
Fair enough.
Although I'd tell a lie, when I was at school I did like the idea of being a teacher, and I liked the idea that you could help students learn things and help the idea and the reward of being able to share knowledge and your own wisdom of like going through life. I think that was motivated or inspired from the idea of having equally really great teachers and really bad teachers, and seeing what made a teacher great and what made a teacher really bad, and being like inspired to go and do the opposite of what the bad teachers do, and I realised that every kid was pissed off, no one liked them. So I'd love the idea of being a teacher so that I can be the exact opposite of that. And then when you had a really great teacher being like, oh, I want to embody that, that was amazing. Like they really motivate the class. Everyone, even students that are generally like nightmares and quite aggressive and really can't settle into a classroom, they've managed to somehow get them settled in. They're not giving them extra attention. They're not giving them like almost bribes to like, look, here's a chocolate bar, just sit down and shut up. They're somehow able to inspire, I don't know if it's manipulate a bit, but they're able to just engage with everyone equally so that everyone's there, heads down. And I wondered, is it something similar for you, or how? The idea of like finishing school and being like, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to teach.
I mean, when I left, I don't think I had ideas of being a teacher at that point. It was more finishing my degree, finishing my master's, doing sales and hating it, and thinking, you know, what am I good at? What do I like? Could I go into a lab and work in a lab for hours? And that's not really me. I do like science, but that's just not me. And speaking to people, working with people, I like that. And you know what you mentioned about kids and working with kids, there is a huge reward when you're working with students that don't get something, and you can explain it in a way that they get it. Teaching, we always say, you know, no 2 days are the same, and it's never boring, which is completely true. You know, and I was quite lucky. I had good classes, I had bad classes, but on the whole, kids listens. They seem to enjoy me as their teacher. And you know, I had to work hard at it. It wasn't sort of something that was natural. I sort of always, like anything, like business, whatever it is, I always sort of put my head down, do reading, research, work out what strategies I can use. And even in my final year, I was still learning and picking up things. But like what you said about those teachers that come in and kids just settle. I don't know whether I can necessarily say I was that teacher. I would like to think I was, but you'd have to ask my students. Maybe they just say, oh, well, there's that. Oh, Mr. Green, that was too strict. I hope they wouldn't say that. I hope they only say good things. Every now and again, I see a comment on TikTok and say, sir, you taught me. And I'm always like, how was I? Was I okay? He's like, yeah. And I was like, all right, cool. But yeah, there's also, you know, it comes a lot down to the psychology of how you interact with people, how you plan and prepare lessons in a way that can connect. You know, if you start a lesson in the wrong place, hey, here's something boring, doesn't relate to your life, sit down and do this exercise, everyone's going to switch off. Whereas if you've got, like, I don't know, if you've got a class of boys or a class of kids that like supercars or whatever, and you do a fairly dull lesson on momentum, you could just have a Porsche 911 on the board or a Lamborghini Aventador, work out the momentum of this car, here's the equation, and they can sort of connect with that. And boundaries is an important one. You let them know what you like from them, what you don't like from them, what you'll do if they do good and what you'll do if they do bad, and you make it crystal clear and be consistent. The consistency from social media is also very true from the classroom. I remember reading something early on in teaching, which is, it doesn't really matter what the punishment is, what matters is that it happens. So someone could be like, oh, if you don't do this, you're going to have detentions for 10 years, I'm going to tell your parents I'm going to do this. And maybe they do it, maybe they don't. Whereas someone can just be like, hey, if you don't sit down and be quiet, you're going to have a 2-minute detention with me at the end of class. Like, 2 minutes, but then it happens.
Yeah.
And I think, oh God, I don't really want 2 minutes of my lunchtime wasted next time. It's nothing, but... And the next time we're like, we have 2 minutes again. I'm like, it's not the biggest deal, but he does do what he says. And that usually is quite a powerful one. And that worked fairly well for me.
I think that works in business as well, just sticking, as you said, it works with social media, the consistency, same as it does like teaching children in school. But I think that would be the same for managing people, is like setting expectations, being clear, concise, making sure everybody completely understands. If you do something great, if you go beyond expectation, here's what's in store for you. If you don't meet expectation, here's what's in store for you.
Yeah.
And if everyone's got that clear channels of communication, it makes things a lot easier. Listening to you and small interactions we've had, I can imagine you're quite a nice teacher and be quite fun to work with.
I would like to think.
I like the fact, like, the relatability. I think that's a huge important thing for school, because that's something that, like, the more I reflect on school and just living real life, I guess, there's so many elements to school. I'm like, don't want to insult a teacher of like the thing that you teach, but like so many elements of school where I was just like, it seems so pointless. And you hear so many people are just like so many people will say like, I had no idea how to use a credit card, no idea what a mortgage was, but I could tell you how to do quadratic equations, and it's like didn't seem to match up. So for you, do you think, is school important? If you come out of school without good grades, is that life's over, or is it like doesn't matter in the long run?
No one's asked me that question.
Really? I feel like it's a very loaded question to ask a teacher. Like, you're kind of obligated to say, no, school's very important. You have to get good grades. You have to study.
No, I mean, I feel free to answer these questions now because I'm not in a school. I always preach to kids, learning and understanding is important, and good grades do open tickets and doors to things that you want to do. So without a doubt, the kids mess about at school. They come out with poor grades. And then they decide, suddenly they're 21, and they think, oh, do you know what? I really want to do this. I didn't know about it before, but I want to do this. What do I need? C in English, C in maths, and these things. And then you need to have a B-Tech or an A-level. And I think, Christ, why did I mess around in school? I've heard that a lot from...
Okay.
I've come across that a lot in my early 20s. From people I know that messed around in school and wish that they hadn't. So no doubt those grades are important. Are there pointless things? Yes. But it's only pointless if you're not going to go down that avenue. You might not know. You might not know. It just so happened. History for me, I hated. I thought it was boring. I don't know whether it's necessarily pointless. I see the point. I just was not interested in it. And it just so happens I haven't needed to know that in life yet. My sons are going to grow up. My daughter's going to grow up. And we're like, Dad, I got this history homework. What happened in 1066? And I'm like, oh no. So that is going to come bite me in the bum soon, but it hasn't happened yet. So in terms of your main question, how important is it? It's important, but there are horrendously, outrageously successful people that flunked school. There are people that came out of school with ridiculous grades, straight 9s, go to A-levels, get straight A's, get their first class, and then are not sure what they want to do, and they don't necessarily go very far. Maybe they do go far, but maybe they're not happy with it. So it's a difficult one, but you might as well do as best as you can, so you've got that option. It's better to sort of have those grade 5s, grade C's, the thing that you'll need to have options later, than to decide you want to do something and not have those grades. But if you flunked everything, Steve Jobs, he dropped out of uni. Richard Branson, he was dyslexic. I don't think he did well in school at all. But there's loads and loads. I think Duncan Bannatyne, the Dragon's Den guy. Yeah. I think he did very, very badly, and quite famously didn't do anything at all until he was like 25, 26. Literally did nothing. Then I think a sibling died. He got an ice cream van. Then I think that business failed, and then he just went on his ascent when he was buying up property and think care homes was his thing.
Was that Duncan Valentine? Because you said ice cream vet, and that was Sugar as well. Unless they both did it, I don't know.
I didn't know Sugar. I know Sugar had a stall, but Duncan Valentine, the Scottish guy, he definitely, I think he had an ice cream van. I'm about 90% sure of that.
I have to research this. Well, even like talking on that, like, we mentioned Diver CEO before we started with Stephen Bartlett, and like similar. Like, did not really attend school at all. Well, he didn't attend school. The only thing he attended was psychology and business.
Yeah.
And then went to uni, did one lecture, and just I'm done with uni, and walked out and quit.
Yeah.
Kind of worked out quite well. He's on Dragon's Den.
Yeah, and youngest ever. So
youngest ever.
Like I know, and I've never wanted to say, if you don't make it in school and get those grades and go to uni, that's it, because that's not the case. Some of the most successful people ever didn't get anywhere for a long time and did poorly for their first years of life. But for the majority, it's a good idea to get good grades and make that decision later.
I think my philosophy was always just kind of, I did mess around and have fun, but then I could get stuff done. And I figured if you can get stuff done, and as you said, like if you can have passing grades, it just means that you can always fall back on them. You haven't got to, if you do endeavour down the route of like being a doctor or a lawyer, you will need to have grades at the start to get into the college, to get into the uni, to get to your master's, your doctorate, and all that kind of thing. So if you can just make life as easy as possible for yourself, then just pay attention and get it done. You can mess around. You haven't got to, people are born with different levels of intelligence, and people retain information differently. And that's a point I want to go on to, actually, is like with the school system, I'd love to get the perspective from someone that's taught in school and that is involved in tutoring. Are you happy with the school system? Would you change it?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. The school system, there's good things, there's bad things. A lot of people are discussing changing exams. Should we get rid of exams? I don't know any other way of assessing people. I'm not saying exams are the best and be all and end all. But I don't know another way of teaching someone something and then checking the difference between 10 people to see who knows best and who's revised best. Outside examining, I know there's many practical-based subjects, and practical-based subjects is different. You've got to show you can do something, and I can't build a desk or a table to save my life. I can just about put up a shelf, let's say. If I was going to be assessed amongst 10 other people, you can just simply go, right, Matt, you got the slowest, so you're not passing this. If you asked me to say, read a book on how to do it, you've got 10 days to revise. I might be able to get top grades. I might be able to beat the other people. But actually, it doesn't make a difference, because I'm going to be the worst when it comes to putting it together. So the exam side of things, a lot of people say that needs to be reviewed. Yeah. I don't know how it can be, at this current point, improved upon. Maybe some way of assessing electronically rather than on paper, having different strategies of assessing. I don't know, but I don't know a better way of making it better today. In terms of actually in the school itself, I've heard stories of other European countries where the culture and attitude to schools and learning is quite different. And I think that has a massive impact. If I don't know, if the culture and people's families are like, education is massively important, you have to do well, and everyone's supportive in that. If you put people into a school and the teachers are average, if the kids have been told by family and society and education is viewed on a pedestal, and your teachers are respected, you respect the profession, then I think kids will probably do quite well. I feel like in this country, teachers are sort of seen as a little bit of as a joke. I think education is viewed as a little bit of a joke. I don't think the majority of families sort of view education and teachers on a pedestal. So you go to school, if you don't respect the teachers that much, you don't respect the school, you don't respect the head teachers, you're not going to do that well. I've heard reports, from countries, Sweden, Germany, I think France, they view it differently. So even if the actual teachers there aren't as good, I'm not saying they're not, but if they weren't, the kids would do better, just because that mentality is there. I've visited many a private school, and I personally feel in private schools you've got very sort of high achieving families. Those families are putting a lot of pressure on the kids. They have to do well. They put them around in classes where all the students are performing well, and in my personal opinion, I think if the teachers were pretty average or rubbish, I think the kids would do well anyway. Whereas if you take those kids and put them in lower performing schools where they're around people that are performing less, the culture and the way that you view teachers is different, the kids won't do as well. So that's I don't know how to change that. I think I visited a school, quite a high up school in London once, and the teacher wasn't really fussed at all. I won't name the school or the teacher, but it was just like all the parents were multi-millionaires. The school was prestigious. All the kids had tutors outside of school, and it was like they were all going to get A's anyway. So whether he was there or someone from the school I worked at was in a fairly low achieving school, who had all the energy in the world, if you put him in there instead, the kids were still going to get A's. If you took this gentleman from the school that I visited and put them in the lower achieving school, I think he would have been eaten alive, and this kids would have massively suffered there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the environment has a big difference. I say it's my opinion, but I think it's pretty obvious. I think it's pretty obvious. If we've got 10 friends that we spend all our time around, and every single one of them is, I only want to achieve X very low. What's the point? Doesn't matter. And you spend all your time around those people, then you're most likely going to think like that. If you're spending your 10 friends are like, right, I'm going to work for this FTSE 500 company, going to do this, going to do that. If everyone's thinking like that, even if you're thinking I'm going to get halfway there, you're going to do better. Yeah.
I think a huge thing there to put on is people's attitude towards education and the education system. Do you know of Ali Abdaal, YouTuber?
Yeah.
So one thing he says that I've always read, that I've tried to adopt and share with as many people as possible, is just this philosophy of, if you're doing something that seems laborious and you don't want to do it, is if you can, in your head, you're telling yourself, I have to do this. And I think that's the attitude a lot of students and parents and just all of society has within England, is I have to go to school. Whereas especially in less economically developed countries, school is not necessarily there for the taking, and so when they go to school, they don't have to go to school, they get to go to school. And that's something Ali Abdaal talks about. He always says about, if you can change your mindset of, instead of saying I have to do this, and he applied it when he was a doctor, I have to go and see this patient quickly, I get to go and see this patient, I get to help them, I get to be part of improving their lives, and that helped him change his mind so much. And I think if people adopted that, it would help a lot.
Yeah, it's very, very true. That's very, very true.
What I'm curious to know, because what is the purpose of school to you? So for me, the purpose of school is the idea of, in this transitory part of your life where you're a child, you go through adolescence, it's a case of preparing you for what the future holds, preparing you for adulthood, preparing you to be able to live a life on your own as an independent adult, and that needs to give you an understanding of finances, in how to live and how to budget. It needs to give you an understanding of how to communicate to other human beings when it comes to finding work, finding love, partners, however you want to live. So you need to be able to kind of be competent in so many different elements and aspects. And so when I think, to me, in my opinion, that's the purpose of school. So you need to leave prepared for that. But I feel schools, the system, misses out on that for a lot of people. We touched on, you leave school, you don't know what a mortgage is, you don't know how credit cards work. You're not taught a lot of aspects around mental health. You're not taught. I'm trying to reflect on what was I taught around the awareness of depression, anxiety, how that can impact you, and what is it actually like to go through, especially with divorce. The amount of kids and children where parents are getting divorced, and I was one of them. There isn't really anything touched on that, and I think it probably would have been a hugely valuable lesson to put some sort of education around divorce. And the problem is the list becomes endless. So for you, in your opinion, what is the purpose of school?
Some deep questions today.
I don't do easy conversation.
I like it.
Hope you're enjoying the conversation. I'm just interrupting we don't have any official sponsors on the podcast, so I'm going to use this opportunity to shout about some benevolent businesses that I see in the world, that I use myself personally, that I want to encourage you to try out and just get the best out of what businesses have to offer. So I'm going to be shouting about Huel. I became a Hueligan a few months ago, and it was actually because they sponsored Diary of a CEO podcast with Stephen Bartlett, and Stephen Bartlett was always screaming about it and talking about it. So yes, of course there's huge benefits. I tried it out purely based on the idea that as I'm trying to become more and more plant-based, and I'm vegetarian but I'm trying to be more vegan, Huel is a great way for me to kind of increase that, as it's completely plant-based, it's vegan. So it's a way for me to, I don't use it as a meal supplement, but I do use it I don't use it as a meal supplement, but I do use it as a way to just get more protein and more vitamins and minerals into my diet on a daily basis. It's been a huge help for me. The biggest thing, before I talk to you about the biggest benefit, I'll mention some of the downsides. Really, is I started by trying the ready-to-drink Huels, and I have to be honest, they are disgusting. They taste far. Anyone that can say they taste nice, I just can't agree with. Don't understand how you can enjoy the taste of it. Something must be wrong with your taste buds. But I kept trying, and in the end I bought the bags where you mix it yourself. I got the black edition with the extra protein. Those I do get along with a lot better, but do be prepared with that. It is something that the taste isn't there, but the health benefits are definitely there when you actually go through the ingredients and what it's full of. It is incredible what they can fit into one drink, being 400 calories, despite the fact it's 40 grams of protein. It's got 26 vitamins and minerals in it. And the biggest benefit I've seen is my hobby skateboarding. Straight away I found if I drank a Huel, I was suffering a lot with like fatigue, so I would go skate, come home, and the next day like my thighs would be aching, legs are aching all over just from like wearing myself out. Yet I found if I drank a Huel, because of all the nutrients I'm getting and the extra protein of course, my legs were fine. My recovery time went from like a day or two to 0. I didn't need any recovery time. I could go skate day after day. And in fact, I'm in Jamaica right now on a 6-week trip volunteering. I've had brought Huel with me, which again helps out massively. It's just a way for me to boost the nutrients I'm getting on a day-to-day basis. And I literally have run out the last few days, and I've noticed my legs are aching where I'm trying to skate, but because I'm not getting my Huel each day, I'm aching. So I can't wait to get home, get a fresh batch. So check it out for yourself. Let me know what you think, if you like it, if you don't. And of course, the other thing I will mention is I did talk about the taste and not liking it so much. However, you can mix it up, create all kinds of different shakes and whatnot. People have done some incredible things, so check them out on Instagram. You'll get all kinds of inspiration there. Back to the podcast.
I like it. So for me, yeah, you said about the sort of the transition period from being a child, and you have to be taught a bunch of stuff of how to live, and yes, school does miss out on a whole bunch of stuff. Like I didn't know what mortgages were when I left school. I didn't know what credit cards were. I didn't know how they were. I mean, I knew the concept.
I'm just like, so many things are rolling through my brain. I'm like, I didn't mention it, but the list is endless.
Yeah, it's a huge list. Budgeting, but for me, you have to know your basics, right? Like I've got my 2 boys are in school now. I've got a little girl as well. She's about to start nursery. Now I've watched my son go from not being able to read all right.
Yeah.
To very quickly being able to sort of read stuff in front of me, and it's amazing because not being able to know what numbers are to being able to count. So you have to be taught basic skills that allow you to come out and be competent, to be happy as a person, because you're able to contribute by delivering a job, and school gives us that. Before school was compulsory in this country and other countries across the world, most people couldn't read and write. So you'd be limited in the scope of things you could achieve and jobs you could go on to do. We have that now. So you will go to school, you will learn to read and write, you will learn to count, you will learn facts around the world around you. Some of them you won't use at all. Some of them you will use because that's the avenue that sparks your interest. And you mentioned earlier about things being useless. There's always going to be things that are useless for the individual, but you won't know that you don't like something until later. I had to have science forced upon me for me to discover, hey, I love this. I had to have history forced upon me to go, this is boring and I don't care. But someone else cares, and they'll be a historian and they'll learn stuff and they'll change the world and improve the world in that area. But for me, I can't muster an ability to care in that, but I do like science, and I will do my thing and continue to improve and try to help the world in a way that I can, in a small way that I can, from that subject that I like. I've only become aware of the idea of school not helping us with life things probably in the past maybe 5 or 6 years, and I've seen things on Instagram like, why are we not taught this? And I thought, yeah, why aren't we taught this? Why was I not taught what a mortgage was before I got a house? Why was I turned down credit on things like phones when I'd never had a default payment? And why was I not able to do certain things? And it's like I had to get a degree in what credit was. I think, how old was that? I think I was 24 and I went to get a phone and I got turned down on my credit rating. I was like, I've never not paid anything back. How could I not have a credit rating? And then I have to research, no, because you don't have a credit rating, no one trusts that you do this. You have to borrow. I was like, this seems crazy. So I have to borrow something to prove that I have an ability to pay it back, build that ability up. So I literally have to pay back interest to show that I can I'm trustworthy, but it would have been useful to know those things. Because even other things I've seen at Clever Online saying, "Oh, get your kid a credit, get yourself a credit card and get your kid named on it. So when they get to 18, they can have a credit rating." Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, with my mum, I had my name on a credit card from like 18.
And people don't know this. I didn't know this. And these things make a difference. And I didn't know what mortgages were. I was lucky enough that I was able to stay at my mum's in my early 20s and stack money together. Me and my wife from early. And we were on the same wavelength, so we were able to sort of luckily scrape money together, get somewhere young. But if we hadn't discovered this, I don't know what we'd have been doing now. If I hadn't sort of researched about credit cards, how to budget, all these sorts of things. You just got to sort of find your way on it. And some things you will have to find your way, but some things you could be given a bit of direction in school. There could be this like PSHE and all sorts of other hour-long classes you do once a week, and one of them could be on that. I don't know what the governmental agenda is and the logic is on not teaching kids this stuff. I don't know.
I think like my thoughts was always schools, like I'd have conversations with people as we left school and everything, and you're doing all kinds of, like I went on to do art, so a lot of academic education was just completely redundant at that point because you're drawing and you're painting. But my fear was always, yes, like algebra is not used in day to day, but it trains a developing brain the method of learning and helps you expand your mind so that you can apply it in other ways. So yeah, I don't do quadratic equations and I don't use algebra on a day to day, but how many of us are always debating things and trying to calculate, I've got this, and rather than it being 4 and 4, it's like, well, I've got X of something. So you do kind of use it without realising, and it's something where, as I said, it's a method of growing your brain in a way to be able to solve problems. Yeah. But I do think it is something where the education system was put in place like 100 years ago for a world that today has evolved massively.
Yeah.
Like everything's done at the click of a button, and like the whole thing of, I don't know what it's like now, but when I was at school, it was in this transitory period of like, you weren't allowed calculators on some tests, but you were on other tests. And the amount of times you heard from your teacher, when you're in the office, you won't have a calculator, or you won't be able to Google it, you're not allowed to take your phone in, you won't be able to Google it when you're at the office. Like, you're not allowed to do these things. And it's like, we all have everything at the tips of our fingertips. I can use a calculator for anything. I can Google anything at any point I want to.
Yeah.
Admittedly, though, I'm not an environment, but I'd imagine in any office environment, if you don't know something, Google it.
Yeah.
Like, it is a bizarre, and I think it's something that needs to evolve with modern times as society moves on. But we are evolving and moving very quickly. So God knows who's going to be able to fix it. It's going to be a mission, and there's a lot to change. I think there's so many different opinions of what should and shouldn't be in an education system. But
I think one of the things I think is tricky with changing anything. I'm sure there's a big fancy word for this, but I don't know what it is. I know it exists in space travel, which is like if you have technology to travel at a certain speed to get to a certain destination, you might not necessarily want to launch, because in the 50 years it's going to take to get to that destination, you're very likely to come up with a superior technology which will overtake the first one. And a similar logic can be said today, right? Kids need to know how to use search engines coherently, because when they are working, they are going to have to search things. You don't have to know things, but you have to know how to find things. But paradigms keep shifting all the time. VR is going to be huge soon. So if we did a big shift on, all right, let's change everything tonight. Let's make sure kids know how to budget. To be fair, you always need to know how to do that. Let's make sure they know how to use the credit system. Let's make sure they know how to apply for mortgages. Let's make sure they know how to use social media at work and all these sorts of things. In 15 years' time, it could be a totally different environment, and in 50 years' time, it would be totally different from that. So everything that was changed today will be redundant then. So I suppose it's difficult to make a decision on what do you change that you see is going to be there for a very long time to come.
That's why I always think emerging technology should be a subject in school, so you can study the future. Like, as you said with history, you didn't really like history, but I think while we're studying history, we should be studying future. What does the future look like? Rather than sitting and watching Back to the Future and being like, oh, in 10 years' time, we might be on hoverboards and have weird shoes that fit to our feet. Although that was many years ago now. But I think the idea of having future studies would be amazing, and trying to look at what technologies are coming to existence, what's emerging, what's evolving, where do we see this going in the next 10, 20, 50 years. That'd be like phenomenal, because that's something I'm just always interested in, and that
Yeah,
I try and
love
study.
that. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, this would be a great school subject. I've said it to a few people and they kind of think I'm crazy, but you have history, why not future?
No. There's a program, Tomorrow's World. I grew up on watching that show.
Yeah.
I love that show. Anything that looks at the future and how it can be, I've always been a big fan. That's why I love sci-fi films. Sci-fi films set in the future. Big fan. But not sure how decisions are made.
No. I have a closing tradition on this podcast. I appreciate we've gone through so much stuff, and I've asked you hopefully some interesting questions.
Yeah,
Deep questions.
Definitely.
I don't like to do easy breezy conversations, but closing tradition, I'm going to introduce a new closing tradition as well, because I've always had a final question, and the final question is, what is something that exists within the world today that you hope will be eradicated in the future? Another easy question for you.
Yeah, gosh. Something in the world today
Yeah.
that I hope will be eradicated.
So it could be a specific disease, it could be a type of thinking, it could be anything you want it to be.
Well, in the educational field, how do I say it? This is something that be eradicated? I don't like the fact that there are kids that can come out of school and not know the basics and not flourish.
Mm-hmm.
The education system doesn't succeed everyone, and it does fail some. So I would like to see that eradicated, and I definitely think it can be possible. I've got some wild ideas on how education can change.
Interesting.
And everyone I say this to, everyone thinks I'm crazy, or they don't say anything, but they definitely think it. I think AI is moving forwards. I think VR is moving forwards. I think the way that I teach, or did teach in a classroom teachers, forgive me, because this will put you out of a job if this does happen. But I think it's possible to use AI alongside a teacher, so teachers can sort of be relinquished from the minutiae of their job. So when I had a job in a school teaching 30 kids, my attention can't be on 30 kids. I can see them, I can interact with a whole bunch at a time, but I can't work with all of them. But I can't see why it's not possible to have AI integrated in the classroom, so that a sort of machine bot that can appreciate whether a kid has learned something or not understood something can intervene. So I'm dealing with a class of, let's say, 100, and this AI machine can work with groups of 3 to a very high level, possibly higher level than even I could, but it can't maybe provide the emotional side. So rather than, let's say, you were a student and me have to sit for a second and go, oh, let me see what you've done, and have to work it out. I don't have to work it out. The machine has done it. So the machine has seen what your weaknesses are. It speaks to you like I'm speaking to you now and says, oh, Hayden, I can see you've got this, but you haven't quite got this right. Try these questions. All I have to do is come by, and in a glance, I can see that you didn't get it 10 minutes ago. You've got it now, you've improved. And I'm like, that's amazing. And then I can keep doing my job. I've got a system that they can see all my kids green, orange, red, rather than painstakingly having to go to you, spend a minute with you. I can't do that. If I do that in a class of 100 minutes has gone by and I've taught nothing. Instead I can have high energy, explain, inspire, show interesting things. Got to learn the class, I've got to know the class. So the element of a teacher is still there. But when you're actually working, you can't get distracted. You can't be lost in the corner thinking, oh God, I do actually want to work, but he's with those students and I don't have a clue what he said, because a machine could be saying, right, Hayden, I can see that you don't get this, and explain those things. It's not going to give you that emotional support, but it will actually tell you what you need to know and show you that. Then I can come over and have that connection with you, rather than say, go over there, I'm busy, I have to spend 5 minutes marking work down, I'm busy, I don't want to do that. No, I've been shown.
It facilitates more sort of recreation within the day-to-day of a teacher. So rather than, as you said, like having to be so much focus on analytics and assessing everybody, that a lot of that can be automated through AI, so that you can spend more quality time with students one-on-one to actually be able to understand and get to know them a bit more see where they're flourishing. And obviously you have the support of AI. I like that. That's it. I think the future will go that way, and you've probably got a lot more knowledge around it than me. The new closing tradition I want to introduce that I was inspired by just random thought was, this podcast is called Benevolent Business, and it always puzzled me that I asked the final question of what's something you want to eradicate. So now I want to ask another final question, that is, what is something benevolent within your life you want to share? It could be a piece of news you've learned, a story you heard the other day about a friend that helped someone, or something you read on Reddit, on Instagram, TikTok, or in your own life, or something that's happening within business, just something pleasant you want to share with me, with the audience today.
Something benevolent I want to share.
Yeah.
Gosh, I feel under pressure to say something really, really benevolent or something very, very interesting.
No, it can literally just be you've got the morning off and you're going to play in the paddling pool. I'm quite jealous of the fact that that's what your daughter's doing.
Oh gosh. Benevolence. I mean, yeah, because you see my family's on the other side of the office here. I do a lot of stuff on social media. I do a lot of stuff going into schools and helping out, and I did something which is quite massive for me recently, which was the Royal Institution, which is a place where they do the Christmas lectures. So I was lucky that they called me in and I was able to perform, do a show, don't know what you'd call it, but I was able to deliver something. And my wife, she put countless hours into the preparation with me, explaining things, going through things, idea creation, rehearsals, and she does this for pretty much everything I do. She's my sort of my right hand supporter. So in terms of benevolence, it would definitely be her. She goes out of her way to tell me all the time. So that's my benevolent thought for the day.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah,
That's really nice. Yeah, you got supportive family and
that's it, 100%.
work together. No, I like that. That's amazing. Thank you so much, and thank you, Matt, for giving me your time and coming on. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.